Right.
So one of the holsters that I really like is one by a company called Crossbreed. And Crossbreed makes a holster. This is a horsehide, and you can go onto their site and basically pick what you want in terms of the material. If you want it dyed, if you want it to be low cut. So the way this thing works here is you can see that it's got a natural curvature to it, and it forms to your body after wearing it for a very short amount of time. It's extremely comfortable. The snaps on here, there's a dual retention, which means that if it snaps onto your belt in two different locations, which I think is great because it keeps it stable, keeps it from shifting and leaning. Now, granted, this might not work for every concealed carry possibility out there, but this one is one that I fall back on a daily use. The reason that I like it is it's very versatile, it's very comfortable, it's very stable, but also the combination of the horsehide with the Kydex holster retention system, it allows for very easily holstering. There's no second guessing and putting this thing back. I don't have to turn around both hands and fiddle, to get my hands, to give space for that weapon to slide back. So just really easy retention, solid platform, and I think it's a great way to go. It's kind of the best of both worlds, which came out a couple years ago. A couple other manufacturers agreed that it worked really well, and they kind of made a couple different versions of it. This one I think runs around like $70. Crossbreed is, they're making really, really high-end stuff, so I think it's worth the money. I think that combination is a really good way to go. So I got that, and I also got a magazine holder made of the same stuff. It's got the horse hide with the Kydex top, it's for the retention of the magazine. Some other things that I think are super important to have: a flashlight. If you don't have a flashlight built in your weapon system, then I suggest you carry one and learn how to use it. Low light operations, the majority of your conflicts are going to be in low light operations. Why? Because an assailant or a criminal is going to feel more secure, more brazen when visibility is in the lower spectrum, and they feel like they're safer, they're hidden, they're concealed. So ask any cop, he'll tell you the majority of conflicts, and even the ones that result in shootings, typically are low light to no light, and having a flashlight is absolutely imperative. So I think that a quality flashlight, now you have to go buy a $200 flashlight,
right,
but there are definitely a lot of flashlights out there that are very, very effective. Some of the things I look for are dead man switches on flashlights, which means that when I release it, the flashlight is off. And why that's important is because if I'm in a tactical situation and for whatever reason, let's say I stumble or I fall, and I've triggered my flashlight, if that flashlight stays on, it's going to identify exactly where I am. So if I've taken a round and now I'm struggling on the ground to either render first aid to myself or defend myself, that flashlight is going to be a dead giveaway to my location. If it's still in my hand and the light's still on, or if it's laying next to me, what it's going to do is it's going to light me up, and my opponent is going to have all that much more of an advantage to shoot in the general direction of my light, and then I'm a goner. So I think it's really important to understand the different techniques, the different ways of holding your flashlight and coupling it with your grip, because obviously if your flashlight is not attached to your gun, it's going to change your grip. So now you're going to go with a single hand grip and do something like an FBI technique where you're holding the light away from you so that you're not attracting attention with that light. If you're holding the light in center mass in your chest, where are they going to shoot? Where's your adversary going to shoot? They're going to shoot the lights,
right,
because they can't see anything else. So there's a couple different techniques that are important to know, but I think it's really important to have a flashlight where when you take your finger off and the back end, the back plate, the butt plate is typically the trigger end, dual purpose. You push it in all the way, let it click, it stays on. You push it in, let it click, it goes off, and then with a slight touch, it stays on until you let go of it. I typically run mine with a lanyard, but I don't think it's very practical to walk around all day long with a lanyard and a flashlight. I think that there's some flashlights out on the market that are pretty small. They're not much bigger than, let's say, about the width of two pens put together,
right?
And they're very, very effective lights. Pretty small. You could easily put one in a pocket, and it would serve you to do just about any type of clearing that you need to do. So flashlight's great. Having a pocket knife is also critical. I have a Gerber tool that I keep in my vehicle. I find that a Gerber tool meets most of the requirements that I need when it comes to a weapon's malfunctioning or adjusting gear, making small corrections on things. But a Gerber tool, again, can be a great asset when you're trying to bypass a lock system, knock the hinges out of a door with with some leverage from a brick or whatever it is you need to do. So, I mean, creativity, and I think another key to it is having tools that are versatile in more than one way. I don't believe in carrying a lot of stuff, like I said, so I try to find objects that'll do more than one thing for me, and I think the Gerber tool is a great way to go. There's a lot of sexy knives and blades, fixed blades out there. Some of them are actually more practical than others, but I find that I don't remember the last time I was in a knife fight, so I haven't really had much justification to go out and buy a $400 Strider knife.
Yeah.
But I've used my Gerber tool on a daily basis on the ranges and in tactical situations where I need to fix things. So I find the flashlight, the gun, the holster, the mag pouch to be imperative. As far as a blowout kit, we've talked about tourniquets in the past. I think a tourniquet is an absolute must. The soft T wide is a great way to go. Battle proven. So that's the soft T wide. You guys to look it up online. It's a great tourniquet. Exactly. It's an outstanding tourniquet. Really easy to use. Again, it goes back to knowing how to use it and when to use it. Curlex, Ace Wrap, a scalpel, an MPA, which is a nasopharyngeal airway. Those are all things that require a very, very basic level of training, and those are things that I carry in my bag. Now, with saying that, we've talked about legality before. Obviously, you don't want to go walking around with your pistol concealed when you don't have a permit to do so. The same thing applies with medical gear. Unless you're trained, you're not supposed to use that stuff. But your good judgment is going to be your best defense when somebody says, why did you do that? It's basically your decision whether or not it would be a likely decision that any other reasonable person would conclude would be a rational one to make. So
right.
Be cognizant of the laws around your area and be sure that you're trained up on the gear that you're using, because it could come back to haunt you. Could be a problem in the future.
Yeah, and that's the one thing as far as concealed carrying and what states grant reciprocity, etc. Like in my car, the one thing I'll do is I have the at least the surrounding states to my state. What agreements are there? I print them out, put them in the car. As long as you come into some sort of situation with a police officer or whatever, and making sure that everything's good to go and having a map of where you're granted that. But as far as that goes, interactions with police when you're a concealed carry permit holder, what do you recommend as far as those interactions go, or what would you do in that situation?
I think you're going above and beyond in what you're doing. I think that's super smart. I think you're being very, very cautious. We live in an era where there's a lot of perceptions about carrying a gun, and not all of it is good. And I wouldn't go so far as to say that I'm a gun nut. I own 2 or 3 handguns and 1 rifle, and I guess I own more than most people. But when you compare me to gun advocates that have got 50 pistols and 25 rifles and 15 shotguns, I wouldn't say that I'm a big gun nut. However, the way that I perceive guns is that a gun is a tool, and a tool can be used in any way, shape, or form. So I think that there's a lot of misunderstanding in the wake of the Sandy Hook issue, some of the other shootings that have been going on, and I think people are looking for something to blame.
Right.
I think that weapons typically take the rap because we don't want to point the fingers at ourselves. And the reality is that what you do with a gun is like what you do with a car, like what you do with anything else. It's a personal choice, and it's a reflection of the integrity of that person. I think there's a level of humility that comes into it. I think a lot of people handle firearms that aren't trained to do so, and they do so in a foolish way. And that doesn't serve our cause any good when somebody who hasn't been trained in a weapon decides to go and protect their neighbor from an abusive family member, and all of a sudden it makes the news that someone was accidentally shot. So I just think that people should be smarter. So I think that your behavior with your weapon should be a reflection of your level of responsibility and your level of training. With that, I think that your relationship and your interactions with a police officer should be respectful. I mean, this guy's walking around all day with a bullseye on his back. He's in uniform. He's a target for any criminal that wants to take advantage of that. But I also think that at the same time, police need better training. I think that police are one of the candidates that need more time behind the trigger. And every cop that I've talked to, that I've had the luxury of working with, has always said that we just don't get enough trigger time. We have to do it on our own dime, which is unfortunate. But I think having an open conversation, approaching a police officer, or being approached by a police officer, I certainly wouldn't be one to go, hey man, I've got a concealed carry, do you want to see it? But I would, however, be very upfront. I would be honest.
Right.
If you've gotten to the position where a law enforcement officer is approaching you and is asking you questions, then something already isn't right. Either you've witnessed something or you've done something to raise their suspicion. So in my opinion, I might not be extremely forthcoming because it might be just a, hey, you can't park here or something like that. But other times when obviously the conversation is going in a way where you're going to be there for a while, I would probably let the police officer know, hey, just I've got a concealed carry and my pistol is on me. I'm not going to make any sudden movements, but I just want you to know so that we both have an understanding and that you're aware. It's not because I'm trying to threaten you or scare you. It's simply I'm just telling you I have a license to carry this weapon. I have it on me. If at any point you would like me to remove it from my body, I can do so in a safe way and place it down on the ground so that you'll be more comfortable. Most of the time, the police officers that I've come across, they don't want you to touch it. They don't want you to show it to them. They want you to keep it where it is, tucked away. Yeah, it's okay. You've got a concealed carry. Just let's go about what we were going to talk about before. Thank you for letting me know. Every now and then you'll come across a cop that goes, really, well, I want to see your documentation. I want to see, where did you get it? Why are you carrying it? And really kind of get sidetracked by the topic. So I think your relationship with the police officer, however you've established that rapport, is important, and dealing with them in a very, very professional way is really important. I will say that when I'm carrying a pistol, I'm a lot nicer to everybody. I don't get mad at people cutting me off in traffic. I don't get fired up about some guy that cuts me off in a line or trips me or bumps me. I'm very forgiving because I know I have the pistol and I know that things can escalate in a very, very bad way very, very quickly. So I'm never nicer or more professional than when I'm enabled to be very, very dangerous. Because with a pistol, you carry a tremendous amount of responsibility. So I think that what you do is really smart, Cap. I think having that documentation, knowing what your rights are, knowing what you can and can't do across state lines, because it does vary state to state. A weapon in California is not treated the same as a weapon in Wisconsin or Montana or something like that. So be smart. Don't give people an excuse to damage your life, which could reflect on not just other people carrying weapons, but the livelihood of your family. You don't want to be in trouble with the law. We got a lot of bigger fish to fry. So hopefully what will happen is in the future, people realize that only the law-abiding citizens of this country abide by the laws that prohibit them to carry guns in the first place. So criminals who we're trying to get guns away from don't seem to be adhering to that law.
Right.
Because they're criminals, right? So it just blows my mind that our political system is so jacked up they don't recognize the fact that people that break the law don't abide by the law. Yeah. So the only people you're screwing are the people that should be carrying the guns.
Yeah, the ones that follow the rules, yep.
Yeah, so it's crazy. And we create more and more laws because laws aren't being enforced. Mm-hmm. So it's a weird cascade of craziness, which we don't have to get into because we'll both get fired up and then this conversation will get totally sidetracked.
Yeah. So getting back to, interactions with police and your background, it's more about approach and winning the hearts and minds versus going berserk. I think Ferguson recently, I think we kind of, use that as an example of, how to, maybe not how to interact, at least in a situation like that.
Yeah, I mean, you just put yourself in their shoes. Put yourself in the shoes of a police officer, and you've been called to an unknown suspect's house. They may or may not know that you have a weapon. So how comfortable are you going to feel walking up to a house and a 200-pound guy comes out and he's maybe got a weapon and maybe doesn't? So my perception is I already get funny looks from people. I'm 260 pounds. I'm 6'4". I'm covered in scars and tattoos. So people already kind of don't feel super comfortable around me. The last thing I want to do is give them a reason to be any more suspicious. Guns are the universal equalizer of everybody. Okay, so just because I can bench press more than you really doesn't matter in a gunfight. Right. So I think that attitude, that respect needs to be universal. So we treat everybody with respect because we never know what anybody's capable of. And a police officer who's had a bad day and he gets spooked by a movement that you do, that could end badly for you. So don't give people the perception that you're a threat. So talking to the police officer in a clear, concise way, being honest, being open. Hopefully you're carrying legally, because if you're not, you're in a whole new world of trouble.
Right.
But I think honesty is the best way to go. I wouldn't say that being super forthcoming about it shouldn't be the first words out of your mouth.
Right.
Just talk to the guy, see what's going on, see why they're talking to you, and then if you see the conversation is going to last for a bit, or if you have any suspicion about the direction the conversation is going to go, at that point, be like, hey, just so you know, I'm just telling you, just for FYI, no other reason. I do have, and I carry legally a firearm, and it's on my right hip, and it'll stay there if that's where you want it to stay. Otherwise, I can unload it and put it in my car, however you feel comfortable.
Right.
And having that conversation, I think, establishes a lot of trust, and that's really important.
Yeah, definitely in that kind of situation.